Hi, I'm Mike Rossi, and thanks for joining. This is the very first episode in what I hope will be a very interesting and helpful series on understanding cause. So, typically, we look at understanding cause within a business environment, but there are many situations where you may want to figure out what's causing something. It could be something that you're doing at home in your personal life, it could be something that you're looking at helping with your kids or in a uni environment or college environment. Or again, it could be a work situation. So there are several videos that we'll get into, and I'll kind of talk a little bit about what the topics of those videos will be in just a minute. But I wanted to give you a video that sort of frames up really why it is we're even having this conversation and give you some sense and expectation around the things that you can really hope to get out of this series. So firstly, I think there are probably three main use cases here. Okay, so three main sort of groups or archetypes of people that would be interested in sort of undertaking some causal analysis or maybe just understanding cause a little bit better than you do now. I think one of the first ones is you're just curious. You're just interested in how things work or how objects interact. And so you have arrived here because what you found in the past maybe didn't solve the problem completely. Maybe it got you part of the way there, but continues to sort of leave you wanting or leaves gaps. So that's one of the first use cases. The second one is probably the biggest one, and that's really if you're an internal or external consultant. I put both of these groups together because I think as an internal or external consultant, you face similar challenges. As an internal consultant, you're really expected to know probably about as much as an external consultant would know. But at the same time, you have to deal with a lot of the political issues and the change issues around getting stakeholders on side. But in terms of understanding cause, it's critically important that you're able to do this on your own because most of the time, you may be, or your team may be the team that's leading the investigation to find out what caused a specific event to happen or what's causing some of your process or product or service woes. Okay. If you're an external consultant, you're also in a really tough spot because your organization may not have an in depth program for understanding and applying approaches to determining causation. So you might have to do some of this learning on your own. You may have come across some techniques or tools in Lean Six Sigma or theory of constraints or Lean, just Lean by itself. And you might be familiar with things like five whys and Pareto charts or fishbone diagrams. But again, you're probably still coming up short the majority of the time. And you may be asking yourself, why is it I can never really put my finger on the root cause, right? Why does this problem keep coming up again and again and again for the clients that you're supporting? So if you're an external consultant and you're trying to get a better handle on things, or you're just trying to prepare for your cramming for a workshop that's coming up tomorrow or in a week, and trust me, we have all been there, and you just need a little bit more support, then I really hope that this will help you out and it will probably open your aperture on how you think about cause quite substantially and improve the outcomes of your next workshop. And then the last sort of use case is really if you're a manager or you're an executive. And again, you've had internal or external consultants maybe supporting initiatives, but the problem still keeps happening. Or maybe you're up against a long-standing industry problem. And even though you've moved corporations within the same industry, you still continue to run across this problem. So for you, it might just simply be helping to frame up the types of questions that you ask the consultants or the types of questions that you pose to the team to start thinking about how do we actually undertake this causal analysis in a way that's going to give us the full iceberg, right? And unpack everything for us. And at the same time, again, if you're about to attend a causal analysis session, you want to be armed with an understanding of what does good look like in terms of an outcome. You don't want to get through a session and then have the consultants ask you, was that good? Did that meet your expectations? And then maybe you end up saying yes because you're on the spot, but really you're not sure if that's good. So hopefully this gives you some context and a bit of comparison to say, geez, this is what good should look like or could look like, and then hold it up against what you're getting now and see how far away you are, how much daylight you have between what good looks like and what you're currently getting. So if you're any one of those individuals, then this series is really designed for you, and it will help give you a fair bit of information to either carry out some workshops, to ask questions and understand what good looks like, or hopefully satiate your hunger or your thirst for understanding why it is or how it is that some objects interact in a certain way to create a certain effect. Okay. Now, there are a couple different scenarios that we'll look at. And I think there's probably two main scenarios. One of the first scenarios is you're interested in dealing with a discrete event. So something happened on Monday, the 21st of January, 2019, at the mall in New South Wales, right? And you want to know what happened, what caused that specific event. Usually this comes down to things like accidents, right? Something happened, there was some accident, right? And they want to understand, or you want to understand, what were the things that came together to cause that accident, okay? That's one scenario. Another scenario is that you're actually dealing with a product or a service, or potentially even a process or a technology, and you want to understand what it is about your process or what's happening within your process that's causing some outcome. Okay. It could be an output or it could be an outcome. Okay. If it's high level, it's outcome. If it's at the lower level, we're just looking at the process, it's an output. So you want to understand what's causing this output, what's causing these defects in my process, what's causing these defects in my service or my product. And you want to make changes to that process or that service to start ratcheting down the quality issues or to start uplifting the amount of uptake or eyeballs or downloads or throughput that you get. So you want to understand what are the causal attributes creating that effect, that outcome. So those are the two main scenarios. And again, we'll cover both of those as we get through this. And I think it's also important to point out that I won't be using things like five whys. I won't be using things like fishbone diagrams or Pareto charts. You're not going to see any of that here. And I'll do a separate video on why that is. But one of the major reasons is because they just never get you there. They never get you the whole way there. And a lot of times, especially when you're using things like five whys, you can't differentiate between a causal attribute and a goal state. And you run into this really slippery slope where you're not sure what path you should go down. And you end up going down a path where you're running up against goals and desires and things that the person or the team or the department or the business unit wants to achieve. It's not necessarily a causal attribute, it's more of a desire or a goal. And then again, there's other reasons around five whys and things like that where it it doesn't give you the full picture. And if you start generating solutions to the problems that you've identified in five whys or in your fishbone diagrams, you can run down these slopes where you're trying to solve for things that again will never get you the whole way there, but that consume a ton of time and energy and maybe don't necessarily improve the customer or the employee experience all that much. Okay. Some of the things that we'll consider during this course, or really this series, is We're going to look a lot at time and space. So where, as in the container of space, where are we? And when are we? And when are we within some journey? We'll think about objects. We'll talk a lot about objects and the different types of objects, physical objects and conceptual objects. And if you're in a service environment, conceptual objects are where people get stuck a lot. You might be used to value stream mapping. Again, you might be used to five whys. They're really, really good. Well, they're not really good at all, actually, but they're very um, grounded in dealing with physical objects, okay? But not necessarily conceptual objects. We'll look a lot at interactions, the type of interactions we have between two objects. Is that interaction harmful? Is it sufficient? Is it insufficient? Is there an absent interaction? And maybe that was the cause for our problem, along with some other things. So we'll look at those interactions. We'll get into the world of functions. And a function is where one object modifies another object. And we'll identify these functions and where these functions aren't delivering. The other nice thing about functions is when you're dealing with functions, you can actually start to quantify and put formulas together to model a specific outcome. Right? It's great to start bringing math in, or calculus or algebra or whatever, and starting to actually model what would happen if you dialed the performance of one object or one attribute down or another one up, and how that would change the effect. Um, and then after we take all that stuff and we pull that together, it'll bring us back to probably the most important thing of all is where do we go from here? Right? So once you actually understand causality and you can identify the objects as they're interrelated that are coming together in time and space to create some effect, you'll be able to look at where do we go from here in terms of solution ideation and solution generation. Now you have the specific objects and attributes. How do we then solve for those problems? Okay, so I hope that this series is going to be great for you. I hope you're going to get a fair bit of information out of it. Again, this is the first of several to come, and I really look forward to going on this journey with you, and we'll see you in the next video.